brief introduction. For those of you who don't know, that includes me before this conference, Bina Paul has been a renowned film editor for over 3 decades in Malayalam film industry. She's a recipient of 2 National Film Awards and Kerala State Film Awards. She's held several positions, including that of the Artistic Director of International Film Festival of Kerala, which is very well known, and Vice President of the Kerala State Chalachitra Academy. Since 2017, she served as the principal of the L.V. Prasad Film Academy, Thiruvananthapuram campus. She's a member of the Women in Cinema Collective, India's first film women's association that aims to work towards equal opportunity and dignity of women employees in the film industry. Ma'am?
Okay, let me take a deep breath. I must say I'm not so used to addressing such a august audience, academic. I think you've thought things through so much more than all of us who seem to be caught in the eye of this storm. I will be sort of just sharing some things that I have been through. I have seen go through these last 2 years that we've organized the Women in Cinema Collective. Thank you, Anveshi. Just listening to Sunita was like an eye-opener. Just towards WCC started on a very unfortunate incident that happened in Kerala when a colleague of ours was molested, and all of us got together and suddenly there was this discovery of each other, which led to the forming of the collective, which has now over these last 2 years, as Sunita said, been battling, let us say, for a safe, non-discriminatory workplace where actually we are valued for our skills rather than our identity. I think that is the key, that we are often valued for other reasons rather than our skills, and this is what WCC's, I think, main aim is. We know that the Metoo came to India, or came to be known in India after these very privileged white women actually spoke up. But also we know that before that, from 2006, the whole notion of the Metoo has existed. So much like that, we had our sort of moments long before the Metoo, or a little before the Metoo, but WCC, I think, a little bit rode on that Metoo wave as well. It's a strange thing that happens, which I know we all acknowledge, and you as academics definitely acknowledge, that there is the notion of privilege on which a lot of people jump on, but that was very good for us, and our struggle has really benefited from the fact of people getting to know, etc. And of course we know that subsequently in the Telugu industry there has been Telugu, Tamil, Angel is here, everywhere there has been this pickup, and finally in that big Bollywood monster also there was some little bit of but as we stand here to sort of look at the gains and make meaning of this Metoo, I'd like to sort of just start on a personal note about something that just happened last month, and it has been extremely painful and also has sort of got us thinking in a different way from what we were thinking even a month or 2 ago. Last month, a friend or a professional friend called out a colleague on Facebook. Now the colleague was also very well known, very well loved, etc. Subsequently, after this, he committed suicide. The male committed suicide, and what happened after that? On Facebook is what is utterly frightening. She was, people just attacked her. She was trolled. She became the brunt of an horrendous campaign. We've really seen how suddenly the victim became the whole notion of what she had done became that she became the perpetrator actually, and horrendous men who had actually been also named by her used this as an excuse. But this is another interesting thing that happened. But we wrote up a letter. I was one of the people who tried to write up this letter to put on Facebook. And the problem is the conflict that I did not sign that letter of support to her. And this is what I would like to talk about, that why is it that there was this hesitation to sign the letter of support. I know Asha signed it, lots of people signed it, but I personally did not sign it. And through this, I would like to just address a little bit of this. So recently we had the Metoo conference. We had a conference like this in Delhi organized by IAWRT, and this is another place. I was at a discussion. We were just at an ordinary discussion about something, and one young girl gets up and says, she was talking generally, and then she says, oh, but the Me Too movement was just like that, and it's dead, and now something. And that really saddened me, because I thought to myself, what happened? How can a young girl like this not understand, not be able to comprehend the gravity of this Me Too movement? How can she so easily say that, yeah, it's over, it's dead? So that actually also started me thinking. And I really thought that this, when Susie said, come and talk, I said, these are the important places, because what the Me Too has done is this, has made us think, bring, talk, endlessly talk about this, but it's really important. While talking about or thinking about it, for me, 2-3 things were very important. One is this notion of due process. Due process. Everybody is talking about due process. Secondly, the notion of consent. What is consent in sexual relationships? And the third is anonymity. And I'd like to talk about these 3 things in terms of what we have encountered or what happens in the film industry. Now, due process. We have, as we know, one of the best legislations in India. We have the POSH Act, we have all the ICs, etc. But imagine one of the largest film industries in the world, highest GDP contributor, hundreds and lakhs of people employed, not a single IC. Not a single IC in any of the industry. Not in Bombay, not in Delhi, not in Andhra, not in... So the point is that if a woman who is, as it is in an industry where she's objectified, where she's, all the notions of what an actor is or a person contributing to this industry, there is no means of addressing any sexual harassment complaints at all. So now this notion of sexual harassment has to be very broadly looked at. I go to a film set, I'm told, oh, you won't know how to fix this plug. So your ability is questioned. The use of body doubles. We had a case in WCC where a body double was used without permission. I don't know if you know what a body double is. In the film industry, often the actor will not want to do a particular scene, but they use what is called a body double. So you want a close-up of a butt or whatever, you use a body double. But there are no norms for that. It's not put into your contract. So therefore, it's a means of exploitation. Basically, it becomes a means of exploitation. Insecure work environments. I mean, you cannot even imagine. No lighting, no bathrooms, dancers holding up saris and changing behind saris, T-boys coming and brushing you as you walk by. And of course, from the seemingly innocuous text messaging. This is another thing. Late at night, you're an assistant director, you will get a message saying the sari or the dress you were wearing was not very good. Mole, tomorrow wear a different color sari. You look different, you look nice in that. Two, of course, the casting couch. So the ambit of sexual harassment is so wide, and the notion of the workplace is so undefined, because you will be told to come and sit and have a script reading session alone in a hotel room, right? So not having an IC, not having a mechanism. I am not, again and again, we all know what has happened with the ICs. Also, we are aware of the fact that they haven't worked. But the lack of any mechanism is utterly shocking. Utterly shocking, you cannot even imagine how shocking it is. And therefore, for example, now WCC has, the first thing we have done is, we have filed a writ petition in the High Court demanding that there should be an IC in our associations, etc. A few days ago, I don't know if you all read that Nayanthara was slut-shamed by this actor called Radha Ravi. And in her reply, the one thing she does say is, why are there no ICs in our industry? Why is it that there are no processes in place for this thing? So my point is that due process exists, or due process is there, but not implemented. There is no actual way that a woman in the film industry, from the top actor to the makeup assistant, accesses any forms of complaint mechanisms. So this quelling, I think this quelling is one very, very big reason why the Metoo had to happen. This was the only way that women could come out and say what they did. And this has shaken, I can tell you, we know for a fact today that the industry is shaken. Shaken, and a little bit of care is being taken. It has not led to ICs yet. They are still fighting and saying, oh, our industry is very good. In the Malayalam industry, for example, the WCC is accused of bringing a bad name by wanting ICs. that, oh, you are painting us as black men, as black people in the industry by wanting these mechanisms. So the failure of due process is something that we have to acknowledge. But what has happened is, I think the gain has been that the implementation of due process has now taken center stage. So while the Delhi rape case, as you said, led to the writing of the laws, I think Metoo, one of the big gains of Metoo is now demand for implementation of law. And we cannot deny that. Today, I mean, even 2 years ago, nobody asked for an IC in the film industry. So this is, for me, a very, very important and, almost watershed moment where even, today in the Bombay film industry, for example, not only are they setting up ICs, but they're also having gender sensitization classes. They're thinking of how they will have gender sensitization programs. The conversation has started. And this has come certainly from the fact that few women put their lives, literally their lives and careers on the line. Another interesting thing is that what is it that we expect? Now, in Kerala, an actor who spoke out, a colleague, we all know him, he's a good friend, etc. She spoke out against an actor who we all knew. So she, for 8 months, nobody did it. She wrote she complained to her association, saying that, look, this guy has treated me, and everybody knew it. She talked about it openly. The association did nothing for 8 months. For 8 months, there was silence. Public pressure, WCC, etc., we were sort of putting public pressure on this fellow, and he offered an apology. Right? He said, I make a public apology for this incident. It was not right on my part, whatever, he made a public apology. Now, I think the discussion within WCC is, should he get away so easily? Is an apology enough? Is it just enough to go through this and be able to apologize? And I must tell you, he is now still continuing, and he's a big actor, and he continues doing films, while she is slowly sort of piecing her life together. So this, this aspect has been a bit worrying. So the calling out for me has also had deeper social and cultural repercussions. While as feminists we have been preoccupied by the playing out of the politics of class and caste in the gender sphere, Me Too opened up the intimate in sexual politics. While sexual violence can be clearly defined, what about those grey areas of desire, consent, and agency? Me Too may have been divisive in one way, but it has also forced to the forefront much that was unspoken, much that was accepted despite assertions of equality and diversity. At a recent meeting, the journalists of Khabar Lahariya spoke out about the silence surrounding what happens in marriages. In fact, the Khabar Lahariya Hindu said at that meeting, she said, we really want to organize a Me Too about what happens in marriages. Now these are the spaces that you never ever talk about. The slippery slope of what constitutes a yes or a no. Do we have the power to say no? An Indian court has recently acquitted a well-known writer and filmmaker. He had been accused of raping an American scholar. The woman's no to oral sex was converted by the judge into a feeble no, and therefore interpreted as consensual. Now, this is a really interesting thing. You have to scream no. Only then is it a no. Now, this interpretation probably comes from the deep-rooted notion perpetrated in Indian entertainment that the more a woman says no, the more she wants it. So what I'm saying is your whole socialization is to, to interpret all these signs as asking for more, right? So chasing, I mean, in the classic Indian film, chasing, I would read as stalking, is the height of romance. That you're chasing this woman and she's going further and further away from you, and that is romance, because it becomes more and more attractive the more she goes. And this myth is perpetrated in our minds all the time. So while there is this Naika, I don't know if you all know the word, this Naika is a very desirable trait for women. That you have to be this Naika woman who will keep saying no, but you're actually saying yes. Women, on the other hand, are infantilized and afraid to express desire. Even if educated and economically independent, therefore they are unable to cope with these onslaughts. I remember having this conversation that, in the West, for example, if a man says, "Can I kiss you?" it's considered like, you're being asked permission. But in India, if a man says, "Can I kiss you?" you are totally astonished, you're totally shocked. It is interpreted as crossing a line. It is not looked at as if, it's the decent thing to do. So this kind of culturalization or socialization of this kind, where you are always, first of all, your own desire is never to be confronted or to be talked about, but also to always believe that you have to play hard to get. So what happens? Unable to interpret signs and evaluate situations, fear and guilt are the overwhelming emotions. Now, with this poor socialization and deeply ingrained masculine superiority, that is the toxic combination. And this is what we see play out hell of a lot in the film industry. This women who are really actually at par, working with you, very beautiful, etc. But the women don't know how to do it. The men don't know how to do it. The men, of course, are so, so intoxicated with their own masculinity that they just think it's the thing to be done. And we also hear of this whole notion of the fact that, every day girls come and throw themselves at us. I mean, I hear so many directors who come and say, you don't know, Bina, these girls throw themselves at us for roles, for anything they'll come and throw. Parents push. My question is, what is your agency? You are a bloody married man. You have, you are a mature or so-called mature man. Why can't you say no? This girl may be doing it. You see, don't push the onus of the blame on her. The point is that it is you, and I keep asking every man, every director who comes and says to me, she threw herself, her mother was always throwing. How could he resist? Well, that's a good question. Why can't he resist? And then also there's the other thing that the men think they're so desirable. 100 years old, but man, they're sexy. So, this whole notion of how it this lack of dealing or I really feel that there is no culture of dealing with this, intimate spaces. How do women? So what happens is it's always unnatural. There is no way that this Me Too could not have happened, because there are no natural situations of sexual relationships. Now, today, of course, the UN is talking about unwelcomeness and not consent. When a power dictates social, the most toxic element apart from masculinity is power. These men are all powerful. So that, I would assume, would be the other element of being able to read power symbols, read and understand how it plays out in sexual relationships. The other area I think that has been deeply worrying for many people has been anonymity. How has anonymity played itself out? And I think when the first list came, as you said, the dosha list came, the notion of the anonymity was very troubling for feminists at that time. And I think in a very sad way, it pitted women against women in a sense, generation against generation, etc. But I would like to just re-look at it and say, look, anonymity gave us this power. Why do we want to minus this fact that lots and lots of women were able to speak up because of anonymity? It gave you an agency that you did not have. How can anybody talk in the present situation? So I must say that this, for me, anonymity is the heroine. That there was the internet available which let you remain anonymous. For me, this has been the defining thing. And I will never, and I wouldn't like to discount it. I know it has created problems. I know a lot of women have especially after that list where they said due process is available, anonymity is not the way. But let's face it, a lot of women would not have been able to talk if there was no anonymity. And there was this young lady at the conference who stood up and said, we don't care. Today, we don't care. You women, she was pointing to older women like us and saying, you did not speak up. Today, the men are scared, and we will continue doing this. We will use all these tools, all this media, these means in our hands to ask these questions. But, point well taken. Of course, anonymity has been this powerful thing, but the problem again has been that a platform like Facebook cannot go much beyond the intention it was started with. And it is not a place, unfortunately, where any matter of import can be discussed with complexity and responsibility. This is the big problem, that if you think it can play out only on Facebook, which is why I must say that I did not sign that letter. I think that, when you add to this discourse on Facebook and you're writing a letter that says, no, what she did was right, and then somebody else says no, for me, I think that was where the line was drawn, where I thought, no, Facebook is not the place that we can discuss this with any complexity. It is really deeply disturbing what happens on social media. Counter accusations take over. These the speed at which these accusations become a collectively called lived reality, the negation, labeling, othering, any voice that expresses doubt or confusion becomes very suspect. You see, therefore there is no dialogue at all. It's one onslaught to the other onslaught, and the other hitting the other and the other hitting. And this is the problem. So, well taken that social media has been the strength of this movement, but for me, making meaning only comes through other dialogue, where you can sit like this, talk, share, WCC, the association. These are the platforms that make sense of all this. You see, it just becomes one mob against another, one looking for retributive justice, and the other vicious and humiliating. So while social media empowered, it also reduced it to a black and white argument of right and wrong. The grey areas went missing, nuance was lost, and many have been wounded. And usually it's the woman. Because what happens? She gets trolled, she gets... So in 2017, for example, we had a discussion, WCC had a discussion, at the film festival, we had a discussion on content. This is not directly, of course, connected to Metoo, but I'm just talking about how social media plays out and how it just kills any sense of making sense, really. So we had this discussion in 2017, and we were talking about content, and a top actor who's a member of WCC, she spoke about a film, naming an actor, demanding that the actor should take responsibility, sometimes at least take responsibility for content in the film. I mean, why don't you question certain dialogues? Why don't you try and, make that difference? This actor, she had just won an international award. She had just come out on top, and we were felicitating her, etc. That day, from that day, she has been so badly trolled for saying something that all of us know, all of us say. But the moment it was on this Facebook or whatever, I don't know what, Twitter or whatever, social media, she was trolled so badly, from threats of violence to acid throwing to all sorts of things, that literally she went down under. So from one moment being a top actor, international award-winning actor, she became a complete wreck. Actually, she became a complete wreck. And no roles came her way. It has, of course, that's been the story of WCC a lot, that we've lost a lot of work, but this became so much. So the whole conversation about content just stopped there. That minute where WCC was hoping to open up a new area of conversation, it was just killed at that minute. But having said all this, I also sometimes feel very uncomfortable with the power that Metoo has vested in all of us as women. I have felt a bit squeamish about the faith in our own word, in the absolute assumption that we always tell the truth. The constant repetition of the words, "I believe you," empowering as they are, sometimes makes me feel unsure and uncomfortable. In our quest for a more equitable world, shouldn't there be safe spaces for all genders? Surely we can't be seeking to replace a system that has constantly tried to diminish one set of voices with another that does quite the same thing in reverse. How are we okay with a system of retributive justice that is hinged on the fact that we believe one side and dismiss the other? Feminism has taught me that change does not happen by shifting power from one sex to another, but its transformative potential lies in radically changing the nature of power itself. I think Metoo has given us the opportunity to think of potential partnerships, organizational solutions, because we know that current workplace structures privilege upper caste men, and create cults of masculinity, making them fertile ground for harassment. We need to zoom out of looking at individual acts of violence to material basis of harassment and move from the moral to the structural. I think we have to create a more mature discourse around intimacy and to think about restorative justice that makes things better rather than vengeful and retributive justice, where violence just perpetuates more violence. My journey with WCC has been transformative. We have sort of ridden up and down on this wave of trying to understand, make sense, battle, this whole structure that seems to not understand, not hear, not want to know that there is another side to the story. We know that sometimes Metoo feels lonely, sometimes it feels it feels meaningless, but it is a cry for help, and I think together all of us have to find ways to listen to this call of help and make sense of it in the way we work. Thank you.